I want to thank you for downloading or streaming this message from Victory. We believe that the starting point for real life change is centered around God's Word lived out with God's people. So no matter who you are or where you are or what you're struggling with, our goal is to inspire and equip you with a new perspective that will give you a better way to do life. And we pray that as you live out God's Word, you will truly experience something more, something better. And if you haven't experienced a live Victory service yet, we invite you to visit victorycc.life for more information on when and where you can join us. No matter where you are in the world, you can tune in with us through Victory Everywhere. That's what we're calling our online campus, Victory Everywhere. Or if you're local, we'd love to have you join us here in person. Here at Victory, we're contributors, not just consumers, and we consider it a privilege to give back what God has so freely given us. We celebrate generosity and the work that God does with our sacrificial giving and in our community and around the world. And if the message that you are about to hear helps you, inspires you, and challenges you in any way, we invite you to partner with us financially in our vision of connecting people back to God. Join us by going to victorycc.life/give. Thank you again for watching. We hope you enjoy this message. I want to welcome you to Fight Club. This is your first time with us. We've been fighting for like 3 weeks. This is week number 4 where we are engaging in battle. And here's what I'd love to ask you is if any of this has been helpful to you, I would love if you would share it with somebody else. You send them a text, DM, email it to them, even a carrier pigeon, just to let them know what's going on. And if you missed any of the last 3 weeks, we'd love you to go back online and watch it. You can watch it on our new website, the podcast, or in our app. And we're doing this series on manhood and masculinity in response to what you see in our culture. Because from sea to shining sea, what you see is toxic masculinity. And here's how we've described that. Behavior is totally driven by and measured by inappropriate expressed violence, an unhealthy pursuit of sex and status, with an avoidance of emotional vulnerability and accountability. And here's what we said. Why we can't change everything and everyone out there, we want to allow God to change us in here. And so we've been looking together for a better way to do life. And we've accepted our God-given responsibility as men to reflect the image of God. And what we've been chasing after, what we've been calling true masculinity. Rejecting passivity and walking towards responsibility. And guys, we've said, hey, we're going to stop trying. Right? You've tried things before. You made an attempt before. We're going to stop trying and start training. And that means that when we fail, not if we fail, we won't feel like a failing, frustrated hypocrite. No, we can just pick ourselves back up and learn, eliminate, and practice. Learn, eliminate, and practice. Because guys, we're in a fight. And if we're ever going to win, we have to realize this one truth, that no man can become a true man without the help of other men. I know it's counterintuitive in our lone wolf John Wayne culture, but no man can become a true man without the help of other men. And then this is something, no matter how much you want to push against that, that's something that we knew when we were younger. Think back to when you joined a team, or maybe your military unit, or your high school buddies, or your college buddies. There was a time in your life that you would agree that no man can become a true man without the help of other men. But the truth is as we age, that truth drifts out of focus. And so today I just have a question for you. Simply this: who's got your 6? Who's got your 6? That phrase originated in World War I. Fighter pilots were referencing the plane. The 12 o'clock was the front of the plane, and the 6 was the rear of the plane. And so later on, they would use it in combat. In the heat of battle, the pilots would call out, "Watch my 6," or "I've got your 6," meaning watch my back, or I've got your back. And men, since we're in a fight, it is absolutely critical that you and I know who's got your 6. Who is it for you? Men, who in your life could you call on when the hurricane comes, when the storm comes, when the fight comes? Because the one thing that we can be guaranteed of is simply this: the storm will come. In fact, you might even be an atheist, but you will agree with the statement that Jesus made when he said this. He said, in this world you will have what? Trouble. I mean, in our real life experience, no matter what you believe, right? That we found the words of Jesus are true. In this world you will have trouble. In this world you will experience pain. That in our real life experience, we've encountered heartbreak. We've experienced loss. In this world we will have trouble. And so when the hurricane comes, when the storm comes, when the fight comes, who's got your six? Now, this isn't just a Jesus thing. In fact, our culture actually even knows the importance of having other men in our life. You can know this by your real life experience. Just think about it. You have people like this, Batman and Robin, Woody and Buzz, right? Drake and Josh, Ben and Jerry. Ice cream, anybody? Mario and Luigi, Han Solo and Chewie. No man can become a true man without the help of a Wookiee or another man. So who's got your six? Now, 2 years ago, we did another version of the same series. We called it Fight Club, and we launched Fight Clubs, groups of men who would come together once or twice a month to fight for their relationship with God, to fight for a good relationship with their family, to fight for a character, and men who would be there for each other when life scuffs you up. And we had men who knew that they couldn't do life alone. And today, I just want to share the stories of just one of the fight clubs. I want to introduce you to this man named Shawn.
I'm Shawn. My wife, Laurel, and I have been coming to Victory for about a year now. And through Victory, I was able to get linked up with a small group, and I just want to tell you a little bit about that. I used to work with a good friend of mine, Luke Grimm, and one day he invited me to church. Talked to my wife one day. My wife had been talking about it a little bit. I was kind of hesitant. I've had some not great experiences with churches in the past, and decided, you know what, I'll give it a shot. Yeah, so we started coming to Victory. A couple of weeks later, Luke gets a hold of me and says, hey, why don't you come over to my place? We're going to go grapple. He used to teach jiu-jitsu at our school, and I've seen him work before, so I figured, I might as well, go. Let's see what this is about. I didn't have, the greatest of, opinions of, a men's group in general, but I also came from a place where the men's group was a bunch of older guys sitting in a circle reading the Bible and just talking. Our men's group, we grapple, we have breakfast together, we hang out, we get together, we get to know each other as men. Growing up, my dad was in the Navy, bounced around a lot. Ended up retiring in Seattle, hung out there for a while. When I turned 18, I got as far away from Seattle as I possibly could, just about. I moved to Tampa. I've bounced around the country, most of my life. Didn't really, give me an opportunity to build a lot of community in my life. The men's group, really, kind of brought me out of an isolation. I'm a teacher. It's hard to talk about guy stuff with a bunch of females sometimes. It really is. With this men's group, it's really helped me, one, just kind of, take the pressure off. Two, it's given me that accountability in my life that I need. Three, it's really, improved my relationship with Christ. It's nice having a group of guys that are, like-minded, that also hold each other accountable, and it's not always, fun and games, talking about serious stuff. Are we taking care of our families? Are we doing right by our families? Are we doing right by ourselves? Not every day is perfect, You're gonna screw up sometimes. You're not gonna do the right thing every time. But having that accountability to, own up to it, somebody checking in on you saying, hey, are you okay? Are you doing what you need to do? That helps. It's not always pleasant. I'll say that much. Nobody likes having somebody put the mirror to their face and making them look in it. But it's necessary. for me, I've sought, community. I finally found one. It's important to make time for it. It's a priority. It's a way for you to take care of yourselves. Ladies, encourage your husbands to take some time out to get away from you, to get away from the hustle and bustle, to go be with other men that are doing the right thing, that are pushing each other to be better. Men, if you're feeling isolated, open the door. Come out, step out, see what's out there. Try a group out. If you don't know what group you want to, go with, try a few of them. The men's group doesn't have to be, just sitting around in a circle, reading the Bible and, talking all the time. If you're interested in Dungeons and Dragons, start a men's group. Play D&D, talk about life, get together with other people. If you're a big reader, start a book club. Find a group of people that are going to make you better, to just grow as men, as husbands, as fathers. You don't have to be alone with this. This doesn't have to be an individual struggle, because as an individual, you're going to struggle. Chances are it's going to scuff you up. Having that group of guys to pick you up after you've been scuffed up and help you keep moving forward, that goes a long way.
Like I said, we launched these fight clubs a couple of years ago, and very transparently, this was a large jump, a level of participation to say, hey, I'm just kind of sitting back. I'm going to be fully in a group, and we didn't get the level of participation that we wanted, and we realized that Shawn was right. We needed to have a smaller first step for people to find groups. So what we did is we found 4 different events that we thought men would enjoy. So this time around, the ask is simply this: asking men to make one decision to take one step towards finding a Christian friendship. David, our connections minister, he arranged these events. He did a fantastic job. And here's some of the events, the guys that we have to look forward to. Top golf, right? Basketball, axe throwing. Who doesn't want to throw an axe at something? And video gaming, right? And so we just want you to pick one of those. You can sign up through our Victory app and the events, or victorycc.life/events. And just so you know, there's a price associated with them. Unfortunately, we couldn't offer these for free, but here's what I can promise. You'll have a good time. There will be some food, so that makes it even good, right? You might just find a friend there. And so I want you to sign up for one of these events to help you find another man that's interested in chasing after the same things that you are. Maybe interested in the same things that you are. Maybe interested in becoming a true follower of Jesus. And we want to help you have an answer to the question of who's got your 6. And when I say that, I'm not talking about some distant friend that doesn't have God in their life. No, someone who's fighting for everything that God has called you to be, and everything that God's called them to be, and everything that God's called you to do. So who's got your 6? And if you struggle with this, I want you to know you're not alone. In fact, Gregory Greff, secular sociologist at the University of Maryland, not a Jesus follower, definitely not, but he wrote this book called Buddy System, and he categorized men's friendships. And as I describe them to you, I'd like you to be thinking about where you would place these different guys in your sphere, men. So here's the very first one. It's just friends. A person you see, they're at your kid's school, they're walking down the hallway at a game, you bump into them at the halls, at work or church or school. Someone who you enjoy their company, but let's be honest, you really don't desire to hang out with them any more than when you see them. You're just friends. Then you have the second category, it's the rust friends. This is a person you've known for a long time, probably someone that you grew up with, you're in the service with, you went to school with. You've known them for years, and here's what you know about them. If you ever really needed them, you could call them, but they're not in your life right now. They're friends, but they're friends with some rust. And then you have this level of friend, the trust friend. This is a friend that you're glad to see. You feel comfortable with when you get to see them, but they're good people, but they're not in your innermost circle. They're just some guys that you generally trust. And then you have this next level. It's the must friend. A best friend. Someone who knows the real you and still likes you. someone who has your best interest in mind, someone who's safe with all of your junk, someone who, when something good happens, you celebrate with them, and when something bad happens, you know that you can call them. Their friendship is a must. And the reality is, Christian or not, most men in America don't have a must friend. They don't. They would call somebody eventually, but not someone they fully trust. They would call someone eventually, but probably not somebody who's following Jesus. And in fact, in his book, Gregory explains why this is. And he talks about the lifespan of male friendships. And most men create friendships in this section right here, birth to 20, right? And here, it's good. Here they have time. They're on the team. They're in a club. They're at the school. They're in your military unit. They're in a college roommate, maybe. And for most men, they can look back on this section of life right here, and they will find a must level of friend. Someone who knows you. Someone that you could trust. But then for most men, life happens. And in their 20s to early 30s, right, men get married a lot of times, or they get buried at work, or at this time, they have less friends, and they're establishing a new family, a new career, maybe a new normal. And most men move during this time in their life. They're just a few years away from those really good friends that they could trust. Then life happens again. And during this time, 32 to 50, most men have lost more margin, all right? They have more margin, or less margin and more responsibility. Less margin and more kids. Less margin and more games that they got to go to. Less margin and more things forced into their schedule. And the hardest thing for things to balance is time. And so most men believe that they're making the right choice by sacrificing their time with other men for their family. This is a transition that does need to happen from here to here. It's got to happen, but it needs to balance out. And guys, let's just be honest. Most of the people that we knew back here, we wouldn't want around our family, right? So that transition's got to happen. But the hardest thing to balance is our time. And by the time you're here, you're 10, 15, 20 years away from true friendship. And then here's the saddest part, this next part, right? 50 to 100, 110. By the time you get here, your hopes of true friendship are pretty much dead. It's gray. It's bleak. And the family you built is rightfully living out their own lives. And you'll hear things like, Dad, could you just drop me off? Dad, I'll drive myself. Dad, honey, I'm going to go grab coffee with the girls. I'm going to go do this thing with somebody else. And not only that, man, our wives are naturally more gifted in friendship. The friendship isn't easy, but they're more naturally friendly to other people. And so by the time a man gets over here, the must level of friendship, that is a memory. And by their mid to late 60s, like they start decreasing their work life, and so their friends that they had at work are gone. And if they are lucky enough to have friends in their 60s and their 70s and their 80s, that's when their friends start dying. And even though we know that no man can become a true man without the help of other men, friendship is complex. Time management is hard. Even though we know it's exactly what we need. I read an article in the study did on men's social connections, and it concluded that men who had male friendships were actually healthier. This is what it said. It said that they had lower blood pressure, lower body mass index, less likely to experience depression, and live up to 22% longer. I mean, science backs up God's call for community. And even though that's the case, scientists are finding that, and they did this study between 1985 to 2004, that the number of men who had a must-friend level of friendship with another man was down by 44%. The same study found that 25% of men hadn't talked to anyone about something important to them in how long? 6 months. The trend is clear. Many men don't have enough friends, right? And that affects them negatively, their physical health and their mental health. And man, if you struggle to list somebody that's a must level of friend to have your 6, most of American men would raise their hand and they would say, me too. You're not alone. I want to share with you another Fight Club story. I want to just thank Jacob for his vulnerability and his transparency. Most men would not be this open, but I believe Jacob did it because he believes that no man can become a true man without the help of other men. And he wanted to inspire us out of passivity and into action. Check out Jacob's video.
Hi, my name is Jacob Bain. This is my wife, Ashley.
Hi.
We have been coming to Victory for about, I'd say, right around a year now. We initially got involved with the church due to a close friend, Luke Grimm. I'm in the Army, so those things came up. Now we came down on orders. I'm a recruiter out here in Indianapolis. I ended up going into Luke Grimm's school, Indy Metropolitan High School. That's where we met, and we hit it off as friends, and me coming in there to mentor students and trying to help them out. He basically reached out with an invite through text message. Hey man, would you be willing to come to church and hang out with us? I said absolutely. We hadn't been going to church for a little while, we've tried it before, just didn't find that home feeling like we have here at Victory, the family aspect of it and things like that. I grew up in church the whole life, and then ended up joining the Army and kind of stepped away from church a little before that. While I was a commercial fisherman, I played music. I was heavily into the rock and roll scene. Not a family man life at all. Although Army life can be a little stressful between moving around, deployments, raising 3 children. A lot of people may think, oh, the soldier's life's so difficult. It's not the soldier's life, it's the wife's life, the spouse, the children. They've got it harder than the service member, if you ask me. And with my job consumes a lot of my time. You see the Army, you see a green suit, we're wearing it, and the camouflage, we're supposed to be these big bad men and women defending the country, and our feelings, they just kind of just like fall off to the side. You bottle them up and push them away. Recently, within the last, I'd say with 2020, I had a lot going on. My wife had a lot going on. I was out of work for a total of half a year almost. I had 2 major hip surgeries, and I've also been told that I'm gonna need hip replacements. I'm not even 30 yet. Recruiting is all about the numbers, whether people want to say it is or isn't. That's what it is. It's a numbers game. The pressure from the chain of command and things like that add up. And it wore on the relationship. It wore on the relationship with my children. The friends that I had when I came here, or I would say friends that I thought I had, Army, the camaraderie, very close. We would joke all the time. I would consider them best friends. They had a Halloween party this year, and I like to partake in drinking alcohol when alcohol was involved, and some silly decisions were made. And like I said, with the Army and the wearing on my relationship, I said some probably ill-mannered things to my wife. Super upset. Between the stress of work and everything, like all those emotions just came out. That it's like it gave me diarrhea of the mouth, and my feelings. I just wasn't all feeling myself. I went home, and I went upstairs and sat in the bathroom and cried for hours. I demolished a bathroom door with my fist. I'm not happy to say that. More so embarrassed. Because I was considering taking my own life. It's not an easy thing to talk about, because you don't know how real that is until you're sitting there. And then you think about it. Like I said, I grew up through church. I know my parents love me. I know my wife loves me. I know my kids love me. But being in such a dark place, all I could do was pray at that moment that I made the right decision. And thank God every day that I didn't pull the trigger. I also had a close friend, Luke Grimm. This is going into the men's group aspect of this, why it is so important to go out and get involved in a men's group. Have those friends you can rely on. Have those true men of God that you can rely on, that I know if I passed away tomorrow, I know that if I got hurt, I was in the hospital, anything, that Ashley could pick up the phone. I could pick up the phone, call, text, and I know we have a family there to back us up.
I'll definitely say men's group has been a big help. Like he was talking about the Halloween experience. I want to say it was probably 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I picked up his phone and I called Luke. He didn't answer, and like I texted his wife, which who's going to answer at 2:30 in the morning? But then we actually had family visiting, and my mom comes upstairs and says, "There's a preacher at the door," which she didn't know Luke wasn't a preacher. But I want to say it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't long after I had called. He showed up at the house, just got in his car and came over and talked to Jacob and talked to him through all his pains and got out whatever he needed to get out. But having the men's group is like an outlet for him. Like he said, the job can be consuming. Obviously, having 3 children can be consuming. When he comes home late from work, the kids are wound up. I'm stressed from the day. So to have that outlet where it's not me, it's not the kids, it's just someone else he can vent to, have someone there to have his back, or go to breakfast, or they grapple just to get some stress relievers out. Having the men's group has been an extremely good thing for our family. And I look at it from this point of view. Yes, the men are getting together, but you got to think a lot of these men are married, have families. Look at it from a wife's point of view. That's bringing another wife into our like wives group. Like, I know being a stay-at-home mom, it gets extremely lonely, gets really boring, and it's very hard to find friends when you're 30-something years old. It's not like you see people every day. So having that men's group, it's not beneficial just for the men, but it's also beneficial for the wife, because your husband's not just gaining a group of friends that he can vent to, do different things with, have adventures with, but you're also gaining someone else to your ladies group.
Knowing that you're building a solid foundation through individuals that believe in Christ and have solid foundations and wanted to have the best intentions possible is an amazing thing, and it's an awesome experience. I would say, ladies and gentlemen, encourage your wife, encourage your husband to get out there, join a group, step outside your comfort zone. You may learn something that you didn't know before. You may experience something that can help you. You may teach somebody else. You could be that guiding light for someone else and not even know it. Men's group has literally saved my life. I can honestly say that. It takes away so much stress from me, knowing that I have, like I said, those guys, my fight club in my corner, rooting me on, not only through prayer, but through the power of being a friend, being a phone call away. It's a valuable thing. So get out there and do it, folks.
Who's got your 6? Who's got your 6? Here's what we find when we place our life underneath biblical authority. It's a better way to do life. Not always easier, but better. In fact, Jesus says it this way. He says, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. In other words, the storm will come, the difficulty will come, the trouble will come, but when we follow Jesus, even though we hurt, we can have hope. And in the most famous sermon Jesus ever preached, or everyone ever preached, the Sermon on the Mount, at the end of the sermon, Jesus mentions the storm. And he doesn't tell you and I how to avoid the storm. No, he simply says the storm's going to come, but then he tells us how to build our lives in such a way that we can withstand the storm. He says this, he says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain came down and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. He goes on to say, but everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it fell with a great crash. And it's so interesting. What Jesus says is simply, you don't even have to believe in me. You don't even have to believe in me for this to work. This is how he says it. Look, he says, therefore, everyone, you know what that means in the Greek? Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice. So not everyone who believes, not everyone who memorizes, not everyone who knows their Bible, not even everyone who attends church. That means that you could log in to church every week online or show up every week online, and when the storm comes, your life collapse Jesus says, no, everyone who's willing to put my words into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. Knowing Jesus isn't enough. You have to put his words into practice. No man can become a true man without the help of other men. In fact, here's what we know when we read the rest of Scripture. You can't follow Jesus in isolation. Because when you read the rest of the New Testament, there's 59 commandments that include one another. Commandments like this: love one another, be devoted to one another, serve one another, honor one another, accept one another, build up one another, bear one another's burdens, forgive one another, be patient with one another, speak the truth to one another, teach one another, comfort one another, encourage one another. My favorite, provoke. Provoke one another to do good works and pray for one another. Just to name a few of the 59. So no man can become a true man without the help of other men, because you can't follow Jesus in isolation. So who's got your 6? Who's got your 6? Just knowing isn't enough. You've got to put it into practice. And ladies, we've been saying through this whole series that we aren't the same. That God created us with beautiful diversity. And let's just be honest about this for just a second. You are naturally better at so many other things than the guys are. Like you are. And so this is where your man is going to need your encouragement and even your permission. And I want to share just another perspective of this very same Fight Club Christy shared with us. So check this out.
Hi, Victory. My name is Christy Baker. My husband, Chris, and I have been attending Victory for about a year now. We have 3 kids, Colton, 13, Kaya, 10, and Trevor, who is 2. So I was asked to speak about the importance of men's groups, and coincidentally, right before being asked, I was watching a TED Talk given by Dr. Brene Brown, who is a research professor at the University of Houston, and she does a lot of study in shame. She explains that shame is an epidemic in our culture, and that in order to overcome it and find our way back to each other, we have to be vulnerable. And she explained that men often have a really hard time with this because it's perceived as weakness, and that women can actually make it worse, and being in the presence of women can make it worse. Before Chris started attending the men's groups, I would hear often, "You don't understand what I'm going through." And he's right, because I don't understand what it's like to be a man in modern culture that doesn't always want you to be a man. They don't always want you to be what you are. Being in a community with men, being surrounded by men that are grounded in God's truths, who understand what you're going through, who you can be vulnerable with and say, "Yeah, man, me too. Yeah, I struggle with that. Oh, that was really hard for me to deal with," is something that no matter how hard I try as his wife, I cannot give him. I don't even know how to model being a godly man in modern society because I'm not a man. That doesn't mean that I stop trying to understand his God-given role, empathize with him, be by his side, and encourage him. It just means that he needs to find that from someone else. Chris was hesitant to go to the men's group, but I've heard more times than I can count, "Thank you for encouraging me to go." And I haven't heard as often, "You don't understand," because he's found an outlet where he is understood and he doesn't feel so alone in his struggles. Wives, I want to encourage you to encourage your husbands to find a group of men that can help to provide some of these things that he's needing, and some things that he probably doesn't even realize he's missing, because the benefits are greater than you can imagine.
No man can become a true man without the help of other men. And that's why we created the easiest first step that we could think of. We have hitting some golf balls, right? Punching some buttons, shooting some threes, and throwing an axe. Who doesn't want to throw an axe at something, right? So and then eating. And that's going to cost you a little money, but here's the reality. You have no idea what hangs in the balance of your decision to take a step away from passivity and towards responsibility. Who's got your 6? Now, all of the videos come from just one of the several fight clubs that God is using here at Victory. And it all really started about 2 years ago when someone was sitting out in the audience like you, Luke Grimm. He caught the vision and caught the passion, and he didn't accept any excuses. If you know Luke, he's a no excuses kind of person. And so I just wanted him to challenge us as we wrap up this service today. So check out Luke's video.
About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Josh has done the Fight Club series at the church. The gentlemen, the guys liked hearing it. The women loved hearing the message for the men in their lives. And there was an initial calling to put together an actual fight club. Not meant to go to the gym for boxing or mixed martial arts, none of that. It's more of a masculine phrase for a men's group. So fight club maybe put some folks off, but at the end of the day, it's just a men's group. But we kind of took that to the next level. So, man, I would tell you the excuses that we hear others give us at work, and we don't want to hear it. You know, a coworker, a subordinate, or superior, we hear excuses and we don't like it. We don't want it. We wish people would be straightforward. We wish people would just speak their minds and be direct, because that's how solutions come about. Yet when given a hard decision, we find ourselves making excuses. It's kind of the way of it, right? Do as I say, but not as I do. So the excuses we make up are that's my sacred, that's my family time. That's my chance to finally be with my wife and my kids. And that's when we go to the baseball game. And that's my chance to just sleep in. Or, I get it. No one should ever look at another man and say, this is how you need to run your family. But at the end of the day, this is how you need to run your family. You can't isolate, you can't stay by yourself. Your wife wants you to be a little bit more. They do. Ask her. Ask her. Ask her if she wants you to be able to do more. And if she's honest, she's going to say yes. Ask her, do you want me to be around men that love God and challenge me to help our relationship be better, for me to be a better father? Do you want me to do that? Of course they're going to say yes. But when the wife isn't around and the man pushes us and challenges us, we use the family as a scapegoat. It doesn't apply to everybody. Of course it doesn't. But we have our Monday nights, our Tuesday nights, our Wednesday nights, our Thursday nights, our Friday nights, Saturday and Sunday. We have all this time. And if we can't find an hour or 2 hours every other week, iron sharpens iron, but not if the iron never touches iron. Iron just sits around in a garage and gets dull. So gentlemen, when push comes to shove, and that hurricane comes calling for you, and it will, the hurricane calls for all of us eventually. Our life is peaceful until the hurricane. And you realize that you're in a dark place, you're not certain who to reach out to. You're thinking about a divorce, you don't know who to ask. You got a girlfriend thinking about an abortion, you don't know who in your life you can trust for sound advice. Your child's going through a crisis and you don't know how to lead them correctly. Your kid asked you a couple Bible questions, you haven't opened the Bible in 5 years, you just don't know. And that hurricane came and you have isolated yourself. We do it to ourselves. That's a choice. So very directly from one man to another, don't make an excuse. If you won't accept it at work, don't you dare give one to men of Christ. Stop with the excuses and you make the time. You're certainly not doing it for me. You're not doing it for Josh. You're not doing it for anyone in church. You're doing it for your family. That's who ultimately receives the rewards. You're doing it because you care about the relationship you have with Jesus. Not just paying a lip service, you care. We need action. We're called to action, men. Take the action, make a decision. If you don't want to start or lead one, don't start one. Don't lead one. But there are lots of groups that want you in there. Jump in, get in. I promise you already fit. So you don't even have to fit in. You already fit because we're all busted up. Jump in one and just go for the ride.
I want to thank everybody that was involved in those videos to be transparent, to be vulnerable, and to speak truth. Hope that you've been challenged and that you've been encouraged by watching those testimonies. We're going to end with one more song, so I invite you to stand. We invite you to sing online. This is a perfect conclusion to our Fight Club series, The Battle Belongs, and a great reminder that we are not fighting for victory, that we are fighting from a place of victory because of Jesus. So let's sing this together. You go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow. You win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress. You go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow. You win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress. You go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow. You win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Yeah. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. In every fear, I lay at your feet, and I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Oh God, the battle belongs to you.
Stay standing. Man, I just want you to know, if you're 8 or 108, we've got these to give out to you in the lobby as a reminder of this series that we're going through. We wanted to give it something. Would you put it in your office or put it someplace where you're reminded? And if you're watching online and you'd like us to mail you one of these, just go to victorycc.life/fight club or click in the link in your notes. Just fill out the form and we'll give them to anyone who wants one. But if you're here with us today, we have some men outside the doors ready to hand these out to you, and hopefully they'll be just firm reminders in your life. Guys, we can't let another year go by, another month go by, another week go by, another day go by where we just sit back. No, it's time for us to fight. It's for who God has called us to be. So we got to let go of all of our junk. And God's saying, I created you. I gave you a strategic purpose. I created you to be a strong man. I created you to be a good friend. I created you to be a confident man. I created you to be a good dad, a wonderful father. And I want you to know, no matter how much junk you got going on in your life, that you are so loved. You're loved. And the world's waiting for men who'll stand up and reject passivity and walk towards responsibility. And men who say, I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of wishing on it. I'm tired of even praying about it. I'm going to walk towards the kind of man that God's called me to be when He created man. So therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Let us run this race of perseverance, the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus. Men, it's time to fight for who God created you to be and what God calls you to do, holding on to His promise that He will never leave you, He will never forsake you, He will never abandon you. His love will cover all of your sins. It's time to fight for your family, fight for your wife, fight for your life. It's time to fight. It's no time to tap out, no time to quit. And then this is how we fight, with our eyes fixed on Jesus, walking towards responsibility. We're going to be active. And every one of us has the next step. If you're here, the next step is out the door to the left. If you're online, just type in that number. It is 317-576-2288. We're going to fight differently this week, and we're going to live for Jesus differently this week. And man, I hope you use this as a reminder that we can be different because of Jesus this week. And I hope you come back next week. Have a good week.